thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Badlands Podcast, the only podcast out there that is 100% chiseled and is proudly part of the Chairshot Radio Network. I am Mags, and unfortunately, with Britain recently going into a national lockdown again because of COVID, it means Mr. Toller is unavailable for this recording, but he's the one who misses out on the amazing guest that I've got today, someone whose podcast I was on really recently, and it's my honour to pay him back the honour of going on to his show. It's from the Call Up Wrestling Podcast, Metal Markle himself. Markle, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Mags. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely not a problem. A long time coming. The thing with this show is it's just took on a world of its own, and I don't know what I've done or what me and Paul have done to make it so popular, but just the amount of people who are wanting to come on this show, and I feel so bad for having people to wait so long. But yeah, I'm glad that we've finally got to the point where we've got you on the show, and I think we've picked a really fun topic as well to talk about. But before that, tell us about your podcast, the Call Up Wrestling Podcast. How did that start? What's it about? Where people can find it?
Okay, well, the Call Up Wrestling Podcast started because as I was on social media and following certain people, you find out they have their own podcasts and they're discussing things that we all enjoy. So I started getting into several different podcasts. Of course, there was always the major ones that I was into at first, but then it branched off into the independent areas. And I just felt like I wish I could be doing this with these people. The podcasters that I'm listening to, I wish that I could be discussing pro wrestling with them. I've got a lot of takes on wrestling. I love pro wrestling. I want to share it with everybody. And that's how the Call Up was created, was because the Call Up in general was not just a wrestling reference, but it was also to say, like, okay, I want to talk to all the wrestling fans in the wrestling community. Whether you're a podcaster or a writer or a content creator, it doesn't matter. But if you love pro wrestling, there can be great conversations that come out of that. And that's how I came up with the concept of the Call Up. And it's been going on for over a year now. And I consider it what I like to say, it's the podcast with no time limit, because be prepared. Some of these conversations can go on. We don't have a time limit. We go into the deepest discussions. There's no time limit. So you can go further into the conversation. And that's what I love about my podcast. And just like I said, be prepared, because it's like the Iron Man of all podcasts, because it is going to go past the time limit. And I'm very proud of it. I'm like I said, Mags, I was honored to have you on there for the AEW review that we did last year, a few months ago. And so it's just like I've got a bucket list of people that I would just love to talk to. I've been following your work for a while now, Mags, and it's an honor to be here. And I want to say, if you are looking for the Call Up, it's available on all the major platforms. It's on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor, among other places, of course. So it's not that hard to find. And like I said, it's the Call Up Wrestling Podcast.
Yep, listeners, definitely go and check out Michael's podcast. It's the thing I enjoy about it the most is there's so much positivity comes out of it, but it's never with an overlying sense of bias. Michael is certainly not afraid to call out something that kind of doesn't hit the mark with him, but he also praises the stuff that he enjoys to the hills, and I think that really resonates with me. That's the kind of mindset that I have towards professional wrestling, and I think that's why I really resonated towards the Call Up. And yeah, if you get the opportunity to be a guest on that show, honestly, grab it by grab it by both horns because it's such a fun time, and yeah, can't wait to have a return visit to the call-up.
Well, you're welcome anytime, Mags, and it's just there's so many people that I want to get around to discussing pro wrestling with, but it's like I said, the fact that we were able to work it out that you came on the show, and I'm looking forward to you coming back as well. I mean, there's no reason that we can't find a way to get you back on there.
Absolutely. So, Michael, since this is the first time you've appeared on Badlands, hopefully the first of many, what we like to do is get the Mount Rushmore of greatest wrestlers of all time from every guest, and our resident accountant Paul, when he's back from his exodus, he collates all the numbers and gives us like a definitive kind of Mount Rushmore from all the guests that we've had. I think currently it stands at we've got Flair, Austin, The Rock, and Hogan and Undertaker vying for that fourth place. But who are the four wrestlers who really resonate with you, and a little bit of an explanation why each wrestler makes that cut?
Well, first off, it's a very interesting subject that you would ask, who are your favorite four wrestlers that would be the Mount Rushmore? What an interesting question, because there's so many great wrestlers that have come and gone or been a part of the sport. So I do have a few picks for you. And some of them you may be surprised at, but let me go with my personal picks here. I want to start off. My number one is Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I don't mind sharing that with the rest of the people that have picked him, because when I became a wrestling fan as a teenager, it was mainly because of the waves that Stone Cold was making on Monday Night Raw. And, people talking about it in school, and I wanted to check it out. And so I was getting into pro wrestling at the end of 97, going into 98, and that was the time where Stone Cold was really kicking off like red hot. And so it's just very personal to me. I mean, not only did he help bring the pro wrestling business to such a big level of popularity, I mean, I really give him direct credit for all the popularity that we saw during the Attitude Era, during the most successful years of pro wrestling during the Monday Night Wars. So, it's very personal to me, not just because he's from Texas and I'm from Texas. There's lots of great reasons. Of course, you probably heard a lot of them. So that would be my number one. And would you like me to go?
Yeah, go for it. It's a great first pick. Really sets the bar high.
All right. Well, are you ready for my second pick?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, this one, I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping some other people have picked this guy, but Bret Hart would be my number two, because I've always been a fan of the work rate wrestlers, the guys that will give you a great match, great storytelling. And to me, the first person that really brought my love of technical wrestling was Bret Hart. And of course, that was during the 90s as well. But it was something about that. He always had the best matches. There was something very intriguing about the way Bret Hart handled himself, especially during that time where he was the hero in Canada and all around the world, but he was hated in America. But nevertheless, you were always going to get your best match of your career with Bret Hart at the time when he was wrestling. And so I feel very comfortable saying that he's my number two.
It's a great pick, and one of the stories of the definitive Mount Rushmore is not necessarily the guys vying for the top place. It's actually the Montreal Screwjob, because Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels are so close in the number of votes that every time one of them gets a vote, we kind of bring it up, because we've got our own little storyline going on there with him. So it's a great pick. I think that pushes Bret Hart a little bit further ahead of Shawn Michaels now. So yeah, let's go on to your third pick.
Okay, my third pick, and spoiler alert, I'd realized after I made these picks that I'm leaning heavily towards the Canadian wrestlers here, but my third pick is Chris Jericho. And I don't know if it's controversial or not, Mags, but Chris Jericho has been around for decades now, all right? And he has not only been successful at every turn of his career, but he's managed to keep himself relevant and interesting and entertaining all along the way. I say he's got the Midas touch. Everything he does seems to become a success, whether it's at the commentary or on a promo or having a great match. He's done it all. In fact, I would say he might be even more successful in this later phase of his career, working with New Japan and AEW with his rock band, all of the above. That I believe Chris Jericho is a great representative of what a great pro wrestler should be.
Yeah, and for all those reasons you stated, he was he's always been my number one pick for the greatest wrestlers of all time. What that guy can do with in the ring and a microphone, I think nobody else has been able to do it. Like you said, he kept himself relevant for over 30 years. He's still at the top of his game right now. Selling millions and millions of albums with his band. I think whatever he turns his hand to, he's able to make a success of. So yeah, it's an outstanding pick. He's kind of dropped off from the main pack of guys at the chasing for the definitive. But yeah, for me, he'll always be number one. But yeah, let's get your final pick.
Okay, the final pick, it's Kenny Omega. Because Kenny Omega has brought my love of pro wrestling to another level. In fact, when I was getting back into pro wrestling, it was Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada from Wrestle Kingdom 11 that really brought my love of pro wrestling to another level. I always loved the guys that had these fantastic 5-star matches. I always loved that even as a teenager and always as a wrestling fan. So this being my first time seeing New Japan pro wrestling for the first time, and being that it was Kenny Omega and Okada, was just incredible, mind-blowing experience. And since then, I feel like Kenny Omega has done so much great work in ring in his career, even if you just count the last several years. I believe he's done enough and had so many amazing matches and moments that I feel like it's fair to say that he should be on some type of Mount Rushmore of pro wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
The best battle machine.
I agree. I think the fact that he still hasn't finished his career and we've still got many more years of Kenny to go just proves how much of a talent he is, that he gets so many people's votes for being on the Mount Rushmore, and yet his career's not over. It's or it's at least not in its decline. I mean, the matches with Okada are absolutely legendary. I will always state that I think Okada versus Omega 4 is the closest to a perfect wrestling match that I've seen in my 30 plus years of watching wrestling.
Yes, and looking back, and when we say in the future, looking back, I think Kenny Omega will also be recognized as part of the core group of guys that helped create and start All Elite Wrestling. And not many people can say that they started their own professional wrestling company. And then, I understand some people just really don't like Omega because they hear so much praise about him, but he does back it up in the ring. And you can look at the top 10 wrestling matches of the year from 2020 and see that he ranks in multiple matches. And like I said, it just speaks for itself.
In the top ranked matches of all time, according to Dave Meltzer's star rating, he's in about, I think, 8 of the top 10. That just shows how talented this guy is.
Yes, he's kind of reinvented pro wrestling as far as like what is possible in the storytelling as well as what you can do. And I don't think anybody can come close to recreating a lot of the things that he's done.
And I think the kind of the bullet point to Kenny's career is the fact that he's been able to do it without needing to go to WWE, without needing to be on what people call the biggest wrestling company in the world. He's been able to forge this legendary career away from the biggest promotion out there.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think a lot of that you could say it's due to social media. You could say that wrestlers don't need that big platform anymore of the WWE to be successful in this industry. So I definitely, respect Kenny Omega for doing it his own way. But like I said, his work speaks for itself. And I don't mind telling people how great he is because I just, like I said, if it brought my love of pro wrestling to another level, I would love to introduce somebody else to that. And so they could experience it for themselves. Can you imagine? I don't know about you, Mags, but can you imagine somebody seeing a Kenny Omega match for the first time and seeing that brilliance?
the way he's able to tell a story, the way he's able to do moves that a normal man would never be able to do. Yeah, I think showing people who have never been into wrestling the Okada versus Omega quadrilogy of matches is a perfect way to showcase the very best of what wrestling can be.
Yeah, and just one more thing about Kenny Omega. I mean, just look at the amazing main events that he's had with Okada. Two of them going to basically an hour in length. And I think after that point, it was so incredible that I don't think anybody else has attempted an hour-long Iron Man match since Omega went to the time limit draw, all of that. You know, it's so, like I said, it's so crazy that people wouldn't even try to recreate what Kenny Omega's done. Now it's like, okay, well, he did it, so let's just move on and do something else because nobody's going to come close to what he created.
Exactly. He set the bar so high that it's not even worth attempting to better it.
Yes, it's just one of my favorite. It's definitely my favorite wrestler currently in the modern generation. Which there's a lot of great wrestlers, but it's just very personal to me that it created a new love for pro wrestling that I didn't know was possible. It's like it's a passion that you have for pro wrestling. You love it, but you've seen so much of it after a certain point of time, you kind of feel like been there and done that. So it's really incredible when something like that reignites your passion and creates a new avenue for you to experience pro wrestling through a new way.
Well, I think you've done a very, very admirable Mount Rushmore for greatest wrestlers there, Michael. Let's get into this main topic now, though. We picked the Mount Rushmore of Royal Rumble matches. So you took a really unique kind of a approach to doing the research for this show, something that I haven't seen anybody else do when they've been guessing on Badlands. You actually took your views to social media. Tell us about how you researched your picks for the Royal Rumble.
Well, when you told me that we would be picking our favorite Royal Rumbles, well, what I realized was that because I had been a lapsed fan, I was a wrestling fan in the late 90s and into the 2000s, but then once Stone Cold and The Rock and all those guys started to drift away, I'd also drifted away, just like millions of fans did. And then it was just touch and go here and there. And I didn't fully come back to pro wrestling until the end of, I want to say 2016. So that means there are a ton of Royal Rumbles that I had not seen. So then I said, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start binging these Royal Rumbles, starting with my favorite, the one that I remember the most, and moving forward. And so that's what I did. And what I was going to do was live tweet my thoughts as I was watching these because I was feeling so nostalgic and having so many great feelings and enjoying these moments again, starting with like the 1998 Royal Rumble. And so I tagged you and said, hey, I'm going to be live tweeting some Royal Rumbles. And I was hoping some other people would join in. But here's where we hit a snag, Mags, because once you binge several Royal Rumbles in a row, you realize that, okay, I wanted to live tweet this Royal Rumble, but this is boring. This is terrible. They are not, I mean, from year to year, the Royal Rumbles vary in consistency, and that's what you find the more you watch through them. And I was live tweeting one of them, and I was like, okay, guys, this is terrible. And since there's 30 Royal Rumbles, if I'm really trying to watch a little bit of all of them, I can't waste my time on 20 to 30 minutes of mid-carders clinging to the top rope, just trying not to get eliminated, waiting for somebody like Kane or The Rock or Stone Cold to come in and throw them out. So, there's varying levels, but then there's also some amazing Royal Rumbles. And I'm really glad that you picked that topic of the Mount Rushmore of Royal Rumbles, because I got to experience some that I had never seen before that I've just had a great time. It was a really nice experiment. And you find out a lot about the Royal Rumbles because you think, this Royal Rumble is just such a basic format, and they repeat it year after year. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so how do you keep that innovative? How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep people coming back? And you find out, okay, it's just, I'm not sure how to explain it, but there's a little bit of a formula where you've got the returning superstars, and you've got the big popular red hot superstar you want to win the match. And they mix up so many different ways to keep it interesting. You have debuts. You have some incredible debuts at the Royal Rumble. So you never know what you're going to get, and it's full of surprises. And I think that's what people keep coming back for, is that you really don't know what you're going to get year to year.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it is year to year and that we only get one Royal Rumble a year, that's what keeps it fresh. I think if you had a Royal Rumble multiple times a year, it'd get stale very quickly, because, like you said, you watch them back to back, and you do find issues with them. You find that they are repetitive. You find that it's a lot of boring kind of action in terms of people that pretending to throw each other over the top, and punches and kicks and guys just grappling against the ropes. But when you only get to see it once a year, it's kind of like fresh in your mind, and it's something different, I suppose. So I think that's what it is. It's the fact that you only really watch it once a year that makes them so exciting.
And that's true. You don't know who's coming out next. So if it is boring for 90 seconds or so, you're like, okay, well, maybe the next guy will come out and it'll be somebody huge. So you never start thinking about this is really dull. You don't really think like that. But once I started binging these Royal Rumbles one after another, I start to realize, like, okay, there are some things that felt like it worked better than others, because there are some Royal Rumbles where nobody barely clings onto that top rope. I think it's kind of a, what would you say, like a trope, or it's kind of like a cliche of the Royal Rumble where these guys are going to cling on to the top rope. Somebody's going to try and push them out. Well, there are some Royal Rumbles where there's barely any of that, and the story is better, the action is better. And another thing that's great about the Royal Rumble coming back every year, you also see these people that become like very top guys that are making their debuts. You see them climb up. It's like telling the story of the company as well once you go year to year. So one year you see John Cena makes his first Royal Rumble, and you see his jump in popularity from one year to the next year, because it's almost like two different people. And so there's a lot of little levels to it. But yes, I think it's up to the talent that comes in there and what they bring to the Royal Rumble each year, because sometimes you just need somebody very entertaining to be in the match, and you don't care if, they're never going to rely on hanging on to the top rope. Let me put it that way.
That's very, very true. So with that, what is your first pick on your Mount Rushmore of the greatest Royal Rumbles?
Well, okay, so I learned a lot about the Royal Rumbles as I started to binge through them, okay? And I will tell you this, like, some of my favorite Royal Rumbles were the ones where you didn't start off with somebody from the mid-card. It's never a good sign, Mags, when somebody in the mid-card starts the match. You really want somebody that's a big name to start this match off and give you something exciting to start with. You don't want to build up to it. So I will say that. And, I got to a point where I was like, there's that on the WWE Network, you can skip to the end of the Royal Rumble where it's just the final four, which is, I'm so glad they put that in there, because, there's a point where you have to hit the eject button because there's like 20 guys hanging onto the top rope. Okay, let's go to the end and see how it ends. And anyway, that's a big factor here after you start binging Royal Rumbles. But I will say this, my first pick for the Mount Rushmore is very personal to me, and it's the 1998 Royal Rumble. That was my first Royal Rumble as a real hardcore wrestling fan. So this is the era of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he is the main focus of this Rumble. But it's not just Stone Cold Steve Austin, but it's also revisiting it. Of course, I've watched this a dozen times as I was younger, but there's lots of little things to it. You've got The Rock in there, and this is also, of course, Stone Cold is starting to ascend to the top of the company, but so is The Rock, and he's really come into his own at this point. And a lot of people think of their big WrestleMania main events between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. But they were feuding all the way back here at the beginning of 1998, and it was over the Intercontinental Championship. So they were already having these awesome interactions, and that was a really fun thing to revisit, because now looking back on it, you see some awesome interactions between each other. The Rock does the people's elbow in this match all the way at the beginning of 1998. They hadn't even come up with a name for it yet, but it's brilliant because I've got a clip on my social media. The Rock does the people's elbow. Well, Stone Cold's right there. And when The Rock drops that elbow, Stone Cold jumps on top of him, starts laying those hands on him. So it's wonderful to revisit that. Also, that was the Royal Rumble with the three faces of Mick Foley. Mm-hmm. So you had him enter the Royal Rumble 3 separate times, which is, as Mankind, as Dude Love, as Cactus Jack. So many reasons that I love this Royal Rumble. But like I said, it's my first real Royal Rumble as a wrestling fan.
It's a great pick, and it's also one of the 4 that I've got for my Mount Rushmore. So it makes absolute sense to have it as my first pick as well. And I love it for a lot of the same reasons that you loved it for. The fact that we get Austin, who had won the previous Royal Rumble, but didn't quite get his WrestleMania title match, and he ended up with the double heel turn, the double turn match against Bret Hart at that WrestleMania. It was clear that Austin was on a meteoric rise in the WWF at this time, and it made all the sense in the world for him to be the guy going into WrestleMania and to win his first title. His first world title. But yeah, the three faces of Foley thing is really cool. He gets to have a battle with his partner Chainsaw Charlie, a Texas gentleman, Terry Funk. We get when The Rock enters the ring, I think he gets hit with a trash can, if I remember rightly, and he ends up spending a bit of time outside the ring. But then we get a period with Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart, who were former allies, having a bit of a war. We get Ken Shamrock and The Rock resuming their feud from earlier in the year. So I totally agree with you, and the finish is really cool because we get The Rock tossing out his teammate Farouk, which leaves him to the devices of Stone Cold. He survives actually getting thrown out, only to be hit with a stunner, thrown out of the ring, and Austin is the second ever back-to-back winner of the Royal Rumble. Ironically enough, it would be his WrestleMania opponent, Shawn Michaels, who was the first winner. So, yeah, for a lot of the same reasons that you've picked it, I'm going to go with my first pick is the 1998 Royal Rumble as well.
Yes, and so you brought up Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett, and I'm glad you did, because this was something that stood out to me about this Rumble, which is when of course I don't remember it, like the back of my hand, and that from however long ago, 30 years ago. So now I'm watching this Royal Rumble for the first time again, and it's Owen Hart comes out, and I get really excited because I was really looking forward to seeing Owen Hart mix it up and, having a new appreciation for him that I did not have at the time when he was in his WWE career. So here's the thing. Owen Hart comes out. I said, awesome. Owen Hart's here. This is going to be good. Well, Jeff Jarrett ruins that really quick, and he runs up and attacks him before he even gets in the ring. And Owen Hart just had a really rough night on this Rumble, but you know what? The funniest thing to me was that Jim Cornette was also there, and he was managing Jeff Jarrett at the time. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, look at that. Jim Cornette is ruining something in pro wrestling, even way back then in 1998. And I was a little hot about that, Mag. So I'm glad you brought that up. But it is nice to see some of these legends, interacting with each other, even now that we know what we know, and appreciating these people.
Absolutely. So, seeing as we've both gone with 1998 for our first picks, Well, let's go back to you for your second pick, Michael.
Okay, well, I think the one I want to recommend the most that I would say is like my on my Mount Rushmore is going to be the 2008 Royal Rumble.
Wow, another one that I've got.
It's going to be interesting to see how we match up. And you know what, Mag? So far, you've got fantastic taste. I will not say. I hope nobody can disagree with your picks here. So let me just say why 2008 really stands out to me. But you know what? I'm not sure if you bring this up or not. But you talk about skipping on the network. You can skip to the Final Four. The story of this Rumble starts at the end of the 2007 Royal Rumble. And if you skip just to the Final Four, you're going to really be rewarded because it's rated RKO, it's Edge, it's Randy Orton, and it's Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker are the Final Four of that Rumble. Of course, it ends with this incredible sequence between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. And so what I love about the 2008 Royal Rumble is that this match starts with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker renewing this rivalry, which is one of the most iconic rivalries in all of pro wrestling, and especially WWE. So I just love any chance I get to watch these two men work and create this magic that they just have, this chemistry. So that was one of the big things that stood out to me. Of course, let's see here. This was the one in Madison Square Garden. And so there was a lot of great moments here. CM Punk and Cody Rhodes were also in this match, which was pretty cool to me, looking back that, oh, hey, CM Punk's here. And then, hey, look, Cody Rhodes is, debuting in the Royal Rumble. So that was another thing. And then, of course, the returns, which we had Mick Foley returning, Roddy Piper, Jimmy Superfly Snuka was there. But, of course, the big one was John Cena returning at the end of the Royal Rumble. So, excuse me, spoiler alert, John Cena returns. It's a really big deal. And it's such a big deal when he returns, and it's fun to listen to these New York fans. Mags really made this even more entertaining. Like, to give you an example, the Great Khali comes out. And for anybody that remembers the Great Khali, this giant 7-foot wrestler, well, the New York fans let him have it, and they start chanting, "You can't wrestle." And you don't hear that chant very often, but I really enjoyed that. That was something really funny. The New York fans have a personality to them. And John Cena returning was a big deal. In fact, the New York audience really came alive when he came back. But what's crazy is they wanted to boo him, but then again, they were really excited that he was back. And it was this really fun dynamic between him and Triple H at the end, which made this Royal Rumble really stand out to me just for the entertainment value. And I think solid all the way from start to finish.
Yeah, again, it's a great pick, and it's for a lot of those reasons, it's why it's made my list. What I would add is because it was at Madison Square Garden, I think it was the last Royal Rumble that was from Madison Square Garden was the 2000 Royal Rumble, so they'd spent almost a decade away. What you get is that amazing visual of the entrance ramp is actually facing the hard cam, so you don't need the kind of cutaways to see who's coming into the Royal Rumble next. You literally can still see the action, but then also see who's coming in. And if you remember back to last year's Royal Rumble, we actually missed a few spots because of the ways that the cameras cut. So I really kind of appreciated being able to see all the action as well as the entrance to the Royal Rumble. Again, like you mentioned, the call back to the previous Royal Rumble with Taker and Shawn Michaels starting at 1 and 2. Beautiful, just really well done. Piper and Snuka's appearance, kind of like another callback to their feud from the late 80s. I thought that was really well done, and the way that Kane dumped both of them out and they still carried on fighting down the aisle was a great touch. But I think you really kind of hit the nail on the head when you said that a lot of the action comes at the end, and it's not until we get to around, I think Triple H comes in at 29, starts basically cleaning house up, and then when the the countdown for 30 happens, and we hear John Cena's music. This is a guy who was injured, I think, in October of 2007. He had a torn pectoral muscle, and he was expected to be out well past WrestleMania. So the fact that he was back for the Royal Rumble and for him to be in the kind of build up for WrestleMania it's no wonder why this guy gets called Super Cena. His recovery time is just not human at all. But when he comes into the ring, cleans house, I think we get a final three of it. It's Triple H, Batista, and Cena all going at each other. Batista ends up being eliminated. Then Triple H tries to eliminate Cena. Cena's able to counter the pedigree. Then we get Cena doing the FU to Triple H to win the Royal Rumble. It totally crowns this rapid return from injury. Really kind of made Cena stand out as a huge star. And he actually broke the record for the shortest amount of ring time that someone's had to win a Royal Rumble. The record was held by Brock Lesnar from, I think, the 2001 Royal Rumble. Or maybe, no, sorry, the 2002 Royal Rumble. And Cena broke that record with 8 minutes and 28 seconds of ring time. Ironically, that record would then get beat 2 years later by one of Cena's bitter rivals, Edge. So, yeah, we're going 2 for 2 here, Mark. So my second pick is also the 2008 Royal Rumble.
Okay, so the question is, Mags, has anybody ever gone 4 for 4 where you just matched up on every pick?
2 is the most. You've tied the most so far.
Oh my gosh! Well, just for the listeners to know, we did not collaborate on this. We're revealing our picks live as
Absolutely.
We record this. There's no like coercion. I don't know what the word is for it.
I'm nervous for what your third pick's going to be because we're either going to continue this amazing streak, or it's gonna be like a damp squib.
Okay, well, I do think we could possibly go 3 for 4, but I don't think we're gonna go 4 for 4. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell you my next pick. It's going to be a little bit in a different direction, and that is the 1990 Royal Rumble.
Oh, we've broke the streak.
We broke the streak. Well, look, there's still one more pick. We could still go for the record of
Absolutely.
3 out of 4. Okay, but I want to say for fans that grew up as kids, as wrestling fans, whether you were however old you were, but there's this classic era of WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it, but it's the classic wrestlers that we all know from growing up, the Hulk Hogans, the Ultimate Warriors, the Macho Mans. And I got to say, if you just wanted to go back and see the perfect Royal Rumble that represents all of those classic retro style talents, I think the 1990 Rumble is a great place for you to go to get that. You're going to get all these classic wrestlers. It just seems like they were all in this right place at the right time. I could go over the list of them, but of course I've got it pulled up right here. But you name one of those classic wrestlers from the late 80s and the early 90s, there's a pretty good chance that they are in this match. And I think it's a very easy recommendation for somebody that wants to take a trip down memory lane and see all of their favorite wrestlers from that era. I think the 1990 Royal Rumble is a great place to go.
It's a great pick. Like I said, it's not one that I had on my list, but yeah, the star power back then in the late 80s, early 90s, especially with how we consumed wrestling back then, it was pretty much you got what you were given kind of thing. It was. When it comes to these big shows, they were 4 a year. It wasn't like we get now, where we get pay-per-views month after month, where we get kind of a superstar versus superstar matches on main weekly programming. Back then, it was literally jobber matches, and then the stars didn't really kind of face each other until events like this. So Yeah, the star power in this match is absolutely phenomenal. It's a great pick.
Well, I appreciate that, Mags. It's just you could name 2 out of 3 of your favorite wrestlers from that era. They're probably in this match, and I want to clarify for anybody listening that this is not the Royal Rumble with Ric Flair in it. That was the 1992 Royal Rumble. That was the one Ric Flair went all the way as the number 1 pick. So for anybody that wants clarification, this was before Ric Flair joined the WWF. But I think people think of the 92 and the 90 Royal Rumbles as the classic Royal Rumbles from that era.
Mm-hmm. This was for even more clarification. This was the one that Hogan won by eliminating. I think it was Perfect at the end.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Mr. Perfect, who had an absolute... This was a star-making performance for Perfect in this Royal Rumble. And it was one of the few times that the champion had actually entered the Royal Rumble. So, yeah, like I said, it's a great pick, but it's not one that I went with. For my third pick, and you've literally just alluded to it, I'm going to go with the 1992 Royal Rumble. This was the 5th ever Royal Rumble, and it was actually the first time that the title, the WWF title, was on the line as a prize for the winner. That's something that would only happen again in 2016, I think, when Triple H won the title for the 14th time. But this whole event was built around making Ric Flair front and centre of the company. Obviously, we'd had the Hogan era, and the WWE were kind of looking to build Hogan versus Flair because they were the 2 biggest stars in the wrestling world back then. Unfortunately, it never kind of panned out in the WWF, and it wasn't until they were both in WCW later on in the career that we actually got that feud. But all the way through the event, we see Bobby Heenan kind of angling for news about Ric Flair. He'd aligned himself with Flair around SummerSlam of 1991. When he was pushing the arrival of the real world's champion. And it was one of the first times that WWF had actually acknowledged another wrestling company with Flair coming in as the NWA world champion. And they showed the title on a lot of WWE programming at that time, which is something you would definitely not get in this kind of a WWE era. They're not ones for acknowledging that they've got wrestling rivals. But like I said, this show was all about putting over Ric Flair as the main guy in the company, and it also had like a secondary purpose of building Sid Justice as a heel. He'd be coming back to the company as a babyface. He was the referee for the Hogan and Warrior versus the Iraqi sympathizers of Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa match at SummerSlam, and the WWF are looking to turn him heel, ready for his match against Hogan at WrestleMania. But this, again, like the 1991, was a star-packed WrestleMania. I mean, we started with Bulldog and $1 Million Man as the first 2 entrants, which just shows the kind of the level of star power that was in this match. And then we get the likes of Haku, Tito Santana, Texas Tornado, Roddy Piper's in this. Repo Man, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, is in it. We get The Undertaker in at number 20, who had recently been world champion and was kind of like part of the controversy that set this matchup of the title being on the line. This is kind of different to a lot of Royal Rumbles in that we get a big amount of wrestlers kind of sticking around till the end. Normally we get like periods where a lot of the wrestlers are cleared out, but we don't get that until Hogan comes in. And then once Hogan come in, he had a bit of a battle with Flair, but then he started tossing bodies out left, right, and centre. Then we get Sid coming in, and the crowd absolutely erupted for him. I think he came in at 29. he eliminated Hogan, which was a massive shock, and then Hogan showing, even though he was the say your prayers, eat your vitamins guy back then, he showed a little bit of a heel work when he grabbed Sid's arm, which allowed Flair to sneak up and dump Sid Justice out and win the Royal Rumble with a record-breaking time of 62 minutes in the ring. And I think the thing that really kind of cements this as one of my favourite Royal Rumbles is that we get the title presentation by President Jack Tunney, and we get an amazing promo from Ric Flair where he goes on about the only title in the wrestling world that means you are the man is the WWF title, and basically being the champion gives him a tear in his eye. And then we also get the amazing comedy gold of Mean Gene Okerlund telling someone off camera to put a cigarette out, which I thought was a real kind of lightweight in such an emotional moment for Ric Flair. But yeah, for my third pick, I'm gonna have to go with the 1992 Royal Rumble.
Well, if we couldn't pick on the same, if we couldn't land on the same Royal Rumble, at least we're kind of in the same era. So I would say like we're still in a similar state of mind. And I love listening. I love listening to you, talk about the 92 Rumble because there is a lot to love about it. You mentioned the Hogan moment where he pulls somebody out when, at the end when he got eliminated, he basically throws a tantrum. And it's funny looking back. Yeah, he was the say your prayers, eat your vitamins kind of guy. But you know what? Looking back, it's kind of like, well, now that was actually more the real life Hulk Hogan coming out there. If he can't win, he's going to throw a fit. So that's kind of funny. And I think what really made that Rumble stand out, like you mentioned, Mags, is the fact that Ric Flair is such a star in this match. And when you think of WWF or Ric Flair, you don't really think of him as a WWF wrestler. You think of him from the NWA, or you think of him from WCW. And I think that's what makes this match stand out even more, is that this was maybe Flair's shining moment in the WWF in his brief run in the WWF back then. And they really ran with it. And it is a shame that we didn't get Hogan versus Ric Flair at a WrestleMania, two of the biggest stars of that decade. So I heard that they were not happy with the ticket sales to the house shows at that time when Hogan and Ric Flair were wrestling each other. But here's the thing. If you had put Ric Flair on the mic and you had Hogan out there, they would have sold that match. I don't want to hear that people didn't buy tickets to the show in Poughkeepsie. You know what I mean? Let Ric Flair cut a promo on Hulk Hogan and people are going to love it. So there's a lot to love about that Rumble that you just brought up. And like I said, at least we're kind of in the similar timeline here going forward into the fourth pick.
Absolutely. Definitely in the same ballpark. And the winner of your Royal Rumble is very much part of the storyline of the winner of this Royal Rumble. So there's definitely kind of like similarities there. And it's really interesting that Flair only had a really relatively short run in the WWF around this time, and it didn't come back to the company, I think, until the Invasion angle, or till the end of the Invasion angle almost. So yeah, it was it's interesting that he only had such a short run, but he's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And again, another wrestler who kind of shows that you maybe don't need to go to the WWF to be considered one of the best.
Yes, Ric Flair's reputation precedes him, and there's the fact that he did have success in the WWF as well as the other companies that he worked for, just shows to how successful he was throughout his career. And even going into the WWF and winning this Royal Rumble, it's definitely a moment in time to be appreciated, because it wasn't that long that Ric Flair did spend in WWF. And it's a really cool moment to see him interacting with all these people from the WWF that you weren't used to seeing Ric Flair work with. So I think that definitely makes it stand out. And it's a great pick, Mags.
Thank you very much. So let's see if we can go 3 for 4 with your fourth pick.
Well, this is going to be interesting, Mags, because I feel a little bit of pressure here that we could set the record. And you know what? I think I picked a pretty popular one, but this one was so fun from beginning to end. There were so many interesting moments. You could say there's a lot of top stars in this, but it's the 2001 Royal Rumble.
Yes.
We did it.
Yes.
Did we do it?
3 for 4.
Wow. We set the record. Wow. Okay.
A record that I do not think will ever get broke.
Well, I'm honored right now, Mags, that we broke the record, and you know what? That's okay. I love that. But let me tell you why I love the 2001 Royal Rumble, because this was one I believe I was watching on Saturday, and I was live tweeting about it as I was watching it. I was having so much fun watching this match, and it wasn't one of those where, like I said, the guys like to hang on to the top rope. This just was built to where each person that came out added something to the match, and it's so rare after you watch so many of these Royal Rumbles. First off, before we get done talking about the Royal Rumble talk, I got to mention this. You know, when I said I stopped watching wrestling around the time that Stone Cold and The Rock and all of those guys left? Well, You know who took their place? Bradshaw, JBL. Okay. And I got to tell you, Mags, personally, JBL is my least favorite wrestler of all time. I believe he kind of ruined the business there for a lot of guys, but I that's my personal feelings. But let me just say this. Every time that Bradshaw would come out, and he came out in every single one of these Rumbles for his, you know what I mean? Every year, Bradshaw's going to be in there somewhere. And you know what? So I would immediately put a bounty out on Bradshaw as soon as he would enter any Royal Rumble. And I wanted to bring this up to you because, you know, this was one of the things like, oh no, Bradshaw's here. But then I would start rooting for who's going to throw him out, you know? So then I would look forward to that. And that was just a little extra thing that I enjoyed about the Rumbles. And let me give you a Royal Rumble fact while we're here. Billy Gunn was able to eliminate Bradshaw in 2 separate Rumbles. So awesome. Billy Gunn gets my Call Up Wrestling Royal Rumble MVP award, Mr. Billy Gunn. In fact, I tweeted that.
Hero we didn't know we needed.
Yes. So I tweeted that out to the account Billy Gunn Fact. I figured that they would appreciate that. All they tweet about is Billy Gunn every day. Yeah. And I said, let me send that to the Billy Gunn Fact account. And they definitely used that. And anyway, so Billy Gunn's one of my standouts from this era of Royal Rumbles because just for some reason, maybe that was the only person that that Bradshaw would let him eliminate him. Because if you know anything about Bradshaw, he's like this tough guy, you know, brawler, shoot fighter, you know, he's a big bad dude. So one of my favorite ones, I think it might have happened in the 1998 Rumble. I'll go back to that for a second, Mags, because, you know, Kurgan, for people that remember Kurgan, this was one of my favorite moments. I saw Bradshaw come out. I was like, oh no, Bradshaw's here. But guess what? Kurgan was Bradshaw's kryptonite. This is brilliant. I know I'm going down a side rant about Bradshaw, but I had to throw it out there. This was one of my favorite experiences of binging these Royal Rumbles. Kurgan was just as he would refuse to sell just as much as Bradshaw would. So now they're just canceling each other out, and it was so fun to see. So if you do check out the 1998 Royal Rumble, please stick around for Kurgan versus Bradshaw. Pay close attention, because for somebody like me. Yes, it's random that you end up rooting for Kurgan in the middle of the Royal Rumble, but we all have our reasons. But let me get back to the 2001 Rumble. I know we're trying to get to somewhere here, but like I said, I had to bring up the fact that if you see Bradshaw come into a Royal Rumble, just know that I'm rooting for whoever is going to throw them out. Give them a WrestleMania title shot. I mean, give them something.
Anyway. I loved your hatred for Bradshaw as turned into a storyline. That's brilliant.
Yes, like I said, I put out a bounty on him. It's like, so whoever throws him out, I will PayPal them $100 immediately just to say thank you. And anyway, but regardless,
so technically you owe Billy Gunn $200.
That's very true. And I even tweeted at Billy Gunn. I even tweeted at him like, "Hey, congratulations, Billy Gunn." And I gave him a little trophy emoji. So hopefully that's worth more than the $200 that I'm probably not going to PayPal Billy Gunn. And I think he's doing okay without it, but it was a fun thought. Like, look, I don't know what it's going to take to get this guy out of here, but
I hope Billy Gunn is listening to this episode and he DMs you with his PayPal details.
You know what? I may have to pay up. You know, I like to say I'm a man of my word, but anyway, so I did get in contact with Billy Gunn. He does have my Twitter handle. So we'll see if he comes to collect. I'll let you know, you know. So anyway, but that was fun, just kind of rooting against Bradshaw. And I can't even tell you, I don't have a lot of great reasons why I don't like him. I just don't like him. I don't like his attitude. I don't like that, you know, he ended up becoming the most successful wrestler. I don't like that he bullied Mauro Ranallo when Mauro was on SmackDown and made Mauro want to quit working wrestling commentary, you know, just permanently retire from that. There's lots of good reasons to not like Bradshaw. I'm just going to say, I've been keeping track. So anyway. It's good that Kurgan came in there and taught him a lesson. So,
and Billy Gunn.
Yes, and Billy Gunn. And thank you for that. So, one of those rewards, by the way, Billy Gunn would have to split with the Road Dogg because it was the New Age Outlaws that. So I don't know. Do I owe Billy Gunn 200 and I owe Road Dogg 100, or does Billy Gunn split at 50-50 with Road Dogg?
I think it's 50-50. I think Road Dogg may tap you up for $50.
Yeah, he'll say, "Oh, you didn't know. You owe me $50 because I grabbed one of those legs in the Royal Rumble." So anyway, but it was fun for me while I was binging this. Some of these times, Mags, when you're watching a boring Royal Rumble, you come up with your own like, okay, what's going to get me excited here? And it was, please somebody throw Bradshaw out. Just that was it. But anyway, Bradshaw was in the 2001 Royal Rumble, by the way, and I couldn't tell you who eliminated him. I don't have it written down in my notes, but I will say, you know, you probably have a lot of notes on it as well, but like I said, everybody that came into the Royal Rumble added something to it. It wasn't just let's cling on to the top rope until the Undertaker comes here. It was each person it just had so much little details to it, like how Drew Carey comes out. And then Kane comes out. But before Kane can get to Drew Carey, Raven comes out. And so on and so on. In fact, at first I was thinking, I wonder if Paul Heyman is booking this Royal Rumble because there was so many ECW superstars in this match. It was Taz and Raven and Al Snow and so many of them that came from ECW. I was like, I wonder if Paul Heyman is booking this. But then Taz comes out. And, you know, Taz was like the biggest badass in all of ECW during his run. And he got thrown out immediately when he got in the ring. I was like, nope, I don't think Paul Heyman is booking this. And that made up my mind. So anyway, there's a lot of great stuff here. I'm sure you have a lot of great things to say about it. It's also R-Truth in his first Royal Rumble, which is wild that all the way back in 2001, R-Truth was working in the WWE. And I thought that was really cool. So just little things like that. William Regal showing up. Of course, William Regal, the man's man, okay, was here. But he wasn't the lumberjack in this one. I believe he was still royally Sir William Regal. So thank goodness for that. But Max, I'd love to hear what you think about this 2001 Royal Rumble. Why do we agree on all these Royal Rumbles? Did you just, like I said, you have fantastic taste, sir.
As do you. For context, Bradshaw was eliminated by The Undertaker.
Oh, well, thank you, Taker. You know what I'm saying?
So you owe the dead man $100 as well.
All right. I'm going to have to look for some fine print in this contract here. Okay. It was a 1 year, one time only elimination. So hey, more power to the dead man. And I appreciate him very much for anything he did to get Bradshaw off the TV screen.
And the reason why I've gone for this rival, again, like a lot of your reasons, is just the amount of star power. But I think that when you're leading into what ends up being arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time in WrestleMania 17. The Royal Rumble is kind of like the start of that WrestleMania season, and you need a good Royal Rumble to kind of set that stage. And I think that this Royal Rumble does that perfectly. It obviously lays the groundwork for the WrestleMania main event, but what it also did for me is it kind of like elevated and solidified the star power of what would end up being one of wrestling's greatest big men in Kane. I think Kane's performance in this Royal Rumble is absolutely exemplary. He broke almost all Royal Rumble records with the amount of people he threw out. The entry of Drew Carey at number 5 was actually the first ever time that a celebrity had entered the Royal Rumble. And the reason why he got thrown in the Royal Rumble, going back earlier on in the show, is that Vince thought he was hitting on Trish Stratus, who was Vince's mistress at that time. But we get a little bit of comedy when Drew attempts to shake Kane's hand, and then he also attempts to bribe him. Kane goes for a chokeslam, but he's stopped by Raven, and that gives Drew the chance to eliminate himself away from the match. And there's a period in this match where Kane actually eliminates 6 people in a row, with no one else getting any eliminations in between. I think it's Brian Christopher, Al Snow, Raven, Perry Saturn, and the Honky Tonk Man. And the streak is actually broken by The Rock, who comes in. He eliminates the Goodfather, and
Yes.
Then Kane carries on eliminating when he did the elimination you mentioned with Taz. I think Taz was only in the ring for 10 seconds. So that really kind of like put an end to Taz being this ECW force. But the whole issue of this match was to make Austin be able to challenge for that title at WrestleMania. And that's exactly what we got. We actually got Austin in at number 27, and just as he was about to enter the match, he's blindsided by Triple H, who got revenge for Austin costing him the match earlier in the night with his title match against Kurt Angle. We have Rock kind of in and out of the ring. He's attacked on the outside quite a few times, and he spends a lot of time outside of the ring. And then we get a final 4 of The Rock, Billy Gunn, one of your heroes of wrestling.
Yes.
Kane. And Steve Austin. Unfortunately, Billy, for all his good work with eliminating Bradshaw, he's eliminated quite quickly in this. And then we get The Rock and Austin going at each other, and they throw Kane through the ropes, which means he's obviously not eliminated. He comes back in, and he tries to eliminate both Rock and Austin, but it's only The Rock that ends up getting eliminated, whilst Austin is able to use that wily tactic of holding onto the ropes. Then we get a little bit of actual wrestling between the two, and then Kane goes outside to grab a steel chair. Austin avoids the chair shot, hits a stunner, and then as Kane gets up, Austin just levels him 3 times with the chair and clotheslines him over. And with that win, Austin he won his 3rd Royal Rumble. It's still a record for the amount of wins from a Royal Rumble, and like I said at the beginning, it led into arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time with WrestleMania 17 and The Rock and Austin. So yeah, for me, there was only one number 1 pick for the best Royal Rumble, and it's the 2001 Royal Rumble.
Well, I'm so impressed that we had all the same picks because, like I said, we didn't discuss this beforehand. And it just so happened that you and I were very similar minded here with our picks. And there are more good Royal Rumbles than this. There's more than 4. But it's cool just to kind of figure out, what's entertaining about a Royal Rumble. And the 2001 Rumble was just entertaining. It's not about great matches or, however you want to put it. But there's a lot of little elements to it. It's the comedy, it's the action, and it's definitely not boring. And so it's it's great when you can watch one from start to finish and just love it and just look forward to what happens next. And just standing alone as a match on its own, I definitely think the 2001 Rumble is a very easy recommendation. So you talk about Billy Gunn. One more thing about Billy Gunn, later on in the Rumble, he starts in WWE, he starts going by the nickname The One, Billy Gunn. And now I'm thinking that's how he got the nickname, was because he was the one who eliminated Bradshaw so many times. So just throw that out there. Okay.
I'm actually going to make it a point to go through all Bradshaw's Royal Rumble appearances and find out actually who eliminated him in each one of them.
And are you gonna tweet them and say, "Hey, why don't you holler at Metal Michael? I think he said he would pay you $100 if you eliminated Bradshaw in 2021." So,
I hope Bradshaw's not been in like 13 Royal Rumbles and you all thousands and thousands of dollars out. No, that was definitely a one-time deal. Wrestlers he'll pay you in yen. You get 100 yen.
Now, Billy Gunn absolutely is entitled to at least $100 for eliminating him twice. I will say that. So, but anyway, as far as the 2001 Royal Rumble goes, yeah, it's a great pick, and it's really incredible that we set a record here. And speaking of records, Mags, I decided to go ahead and look up who has the most career eliminations. It's not a big surprise. It's Kane. He has the most eliminations of all Royal Rumble competitors, according to ESPN.com. People, this is ESPN.com says he has 42 career eliminations. I don't even know who second place is, but you would think Kane would have the record from all those Royal Rumbles that he participated in.
Yeah, and I think if I remember rightly, Chris Jericho has actually got the longest amount of ring time in the Royal Rumble as well.
Oh, really? Well, I love that we're dropping Royal Rumble facts here
Absolutely.
On the Badlands. And so it'd be also the Mount Rushmore of Royal Rumble stats. Why not? Now, okay. Mags, can I throw out my honorable mention really quick?
Absolutely.
Well, really quick, I want to say, there's definitely different eras of WWE. Like I said, we've got the classic era, we've got the attitude era, we got the ruthless aggression era. But, if you're looking towards like the most recent years of Royal Rumbles, I want to throw out as an honorable mention the 2018 Royal Rumble. And it's basically based on the Final Four alone. And I want to bring that up because if you go to the 2018 Royal Rumble and you skip to the end, it's Finn Balor, it's Shinsuke Nakamura, it's John Cena, and it's Roman Reigns. And this is very interesting at this time because you get to see how popular, how excited the crowd was for Shinsuke Nakamura. That's who they were rooting for at the time. I would even go as far to say that this was Shinsuke's peak of popularity in the WWE because we know what happens after he wins this Royal Rumble, Mags. And if you poll all these wrestling fans on Twitter today and say who won the 2018 Royal Rumble, I don't think they would remember that Shinsuke won a Royal Rumble and went on to face AJ Styles at WrestleMania, which is sad because that tells you how bad they messed up with Shinsuke Nakamura. Okay. Yeah. But regardless, what's awesome about the 2018 Rumble, that Final Four, you could root for any of these guys to win. Of course, people were tired of Reigns at this time and Cena. So then you still had Balor and you still had Shinsuke. And this was also the Rumble that Balor goes all the way coast to coast, starting at number 2 in the Rumble. So if you're a Finn Balor fan, that's got to be great. And, so you're like, hey, look, there's 2 new guys that we love that could go to WrestleMania versus the 2 guys that always go to WrestleMania. And this creates a really cool dynamic. So I wanted to throw that out there as my honorable mention, the 2018 Royal Rumble. And I think out of all the fans that watch WWE at this current period, I think as we go forward, I think people will look fondly back at that moment and that Royal Rumble as this modern era and one of the times they got it right.
Yep, and I think And another Royal Rumble that we could easily bring up is from the same card, the Women's Royal Rumble, where Asuka won the Royal Rumble and went on to challenge for the world title at WrestleMania. That was kind of the first time that WWE have really acknowledged the impact of wrestling from Japan. Usually when wrestlers come into from Japan into the WWF, they kind of like quickly go on to the undercard, and now I know that really happened with Shinsuke, but with Asuka, she's been at the top of the card since being in NXT, and she's obviously still currently a champion. So it shows kind of just the influence that Japanese style wrestling is having on the company nowadays.
Yes, and I look forward to the women's Royal Rumbles just as much as I look forward to the men's now, because you always, not just the surprises, but just the fact that there's so many talented women that work under the WWE organization. So I'll always look forward to those, and like I said, it's definitely those women definitely deserve to have a Rumble of their own, considering how many incredible women are on this roster between Raw and SmackDown and NXT.
Absolutely. Well, this has been so much fun. The fact that we hit 3 out of 4 is it's just outstanding that we had such similar picks, and even the one where we just missed the mark, we're only out by 2 years.
2 years.
Considering how long the Royal Rumble's been going, that's phenomenal.
It's uncanny.
It's something that I don't think will get repeated on Badlands, but you never know. I'm sure when you have the chance to revisit Badlands, I wonder if we can go for the record of 4-4, be the first to ever do it.
Yes. Well, so does Paul put that in the record books?
Well, it'll definitely be going in the Badlands record books. You can be rest assured of that. But I won't be making an offer to give wrestlers $100 if they can come in and beat it. That's for sure. Yes,
that's probably not a good idea. If you expand it out to the 20 years of these guys working, yeah. So if Bradshaw's been in 10 Royal Rumbles, I'm about to pony up a G to somebody. I'm about to, you know what I mean? So maybe I spoke too soon, but. Like I said, if Billy Gunn hits me up in the DMs, I'm going to work something out. I'll buy a T-shirt. How about that? Maybe I can negotiate him down to where I buy a T-shirt from his pro wrestling tee store. I don't know. Billy Gunn, let me know, man. But I'm proud of you, buddy. MVP. You got the trophy emoji. You know, that's something. You know, but hey,
absolutely, that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. So it's wild. We got 3 out of 4. I'm really happy about that, Mags. It's fun. That, you know, we had no idea what we were going to talk about, and we came close to going 4 for 4, but you know, why not? But I'd be glad to come back anytime, and I'm just glad you picked this topic because I had a lot of fun watching all these Royal Rumble moments and kind of discovering some of them for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome, and that's kind of the point of the show, is to have fun with wrestling. I think a lot of our fans nowadays take it a little bit too seriously and get very bent out of shape about wrestling. And the whole point of Badlands is to remember the good times and also kind of poke fun at some of the bad times. So I'm really glad that you enjoyed the research, and I'm really glad that you have enjoyed being on the show. And I'm even more glad that our picks are so similar. It shows great minds actually do think alike. But what I need from you now, Michael, is a topic for a future guest. What kind of a Mount Rushmore would you like to hear somebody come on the show and debate about?
Well, that's interesting, Mags. You're putting me on the spot here because I really didn't think about it until today about what topic I would suggest. So I'm going to throw one out there, and you tell me if you've already discussed it, and then I guess we'll have to come up with a backup. But, okay, I got you. How about Mount Rushmore of cage matches?
It's not being done. That's a really, really interesting topic because there's been so many different cage matches. There's so many kind of different varieties of cage matches as well. So it'll be fun kind of looking into that and picking out 4 out of the many, many cage matches that there've been.
Well, I like to leave it open like that. Yeah, we could say top Hell in a Cell or however you want to call it, but I would like to just leave it open because there have been some incredible cage matches over, the history of pro wrestling, and I would love to hear, Mags, an episode and your favorite picks on your favorite cage matches. I think that's a pretty good topic.
It's an absolutely outstanding topic, and it's one we'll definitely be bringing up in the very near future. But yeah, Michael, this has been absolutely awesome. I'm so glad that we've been able to finally get you on Badlands. What I'd like from you now is to tell everybody where they can find you on social media, where they can find the Call Up Wrestling Podcast, all your details, and where they can come and claim that $100 for eliminating Bradshaw.
Yes. Well, for Bradshaw, if he's listening and he wants to block me on social media, he can block me at Metal Michael, which is spelled Mixael. Yes, it's spelled with an X, but that's Metal Michael on Twitter. Also, the podcast has its own account on Twitter, which is at Call Up Wrestling. So you can always send me feedback or find links to the podcast on Twitter. Of course, you can look for the Call Up Wrestling Podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor podcasts as well. So it's out there. You can find Mags on there. We had a great time talking about AEW. Really, really good conversation. I believe that was it
Full Gear?
I believe it was Full Gear. Yes. And anyway, I'm glad I got you on the show, Mags. Of course, I look forward to working with you a lot more in the future, and always happy to collaborate with you, sir. The Podfather himself.
Thank you very much. And I'd absolutely be an honor to work with you again. I'm sure we'll have you on Badlands again in the very near future. And yeah, anytime you want me back on the call up, just give me a shout and I'll be there with bells on. But yeah, I really appreciate you spending the time with me, Michael. It's been an absolute honor. You can follow me on Twitter if you like, at DJ Kirby. Follow my absent co-host, Mr. Paul Tully, at Raincounter. You can follow the show's Twitter account at Badlands Pod. What is your favourite Royal Rumbles? Let us know in the comments. Thank you all for listening, liking and subscribing. Remember that when we formulate these Mount Rushmores, we only have one rule, and that is that you must always use your head.
TheChairshot.com. Always use your head.